One of the most unforgettable relationships I've ever experienced. I saw her on a TV show, someone I'd never laid eyes on before, and I just knew. That was it. Whoever she was, I was going to take the leap. Follow the feeling. Take the risk. There are movie stars, and then there are legends. Robert Redford wasn't just a Hollywood heartthrob, he was the man. Admired by men, adored by women, the picture of cool. But behind the charm, behind the iconic grin of the Sundance Kid, was a man quietly haunted by love. Love found, love lost, and love that never quite let go. Now at 89, Redford has opened up, revealing the 6 women who shaped not just his heart, but his soul. The wife who stood beside him before fame. The Hollywood goddess who slipped away too soon. The wildfire of passion that refused to be tamed. The friend who almost became something more. And the one woman who finally stilled his restless spirit. These aren't tabloid tales. They're the unseen truths of a man the world thought it understood. Stay with us, because Robert Redford's greatest love stories, they were never captured on film. Lola Van Wagenen, the first love that defined his youth before the red carpets and magazine covers, before Robert Redford became Robert Redford, there was Lola Van Wagenen. She wasn't a rising starlet or an industry insider. Lola was a historian, deeply intelligent, grounded, and living far from the glare of the spotlight. And in those early, uncertain years, that's exactly what Redford needed. Someone steady, someone genuine, someone who saw him not as a legend in the making, but simply as Bob. They married in 1958, when Redford was still just a young man chasing hazy dreams. The world didn't know his name yet, but Lola believed in him before anyone else did. Together, they built a life, raised 4 children, and carved out a semblance of normalcy in a life that would soon become anything but. But fame is a force, and Hollywood is unkind to distance. Redford's career took off, and with it came long nights, endless travel, and the weight of growing stardom. These pressures, slowly but surely, took their toll. By 1985, nearly 30 years later, they quietly divorced. No drama, no headlines. Just 2 people who had grown in different directions, in ways neither could undo. Still, Lola never really left his life. In interviews, Redford often spoke of her with deep respect, and sometimes a quiet sadness. As though a part of him never stopped loving her. She wasn't just his first wife. She was the anchor in a time when he could have been lost to fame. And anchors, even when they're let go, leave their mark. Natalie Wood, the co-star who captured his heart in the shimmering haze of 1960s Hollywood, Robert Redford met a woman whose beauty had already become legend, Natalie Wood. By then, Natalie was the darling of the silver screen. Having grown up in the spotlight, she had transformed into one of the most magnetic actresses of her generation. Redford, still carving out his path, saw in her a colleague, a star, and something more. They shared the screen in Inside Daisy Clover, 1965, and This Property is Condemned, 1966. And their on-screen chemistry was undeniable. He played the charismatic drifter, she, the fragile dreamer. Together they seemed to bottle the restless spirit of a generation. But off-screen, whispers swirled. There were rumors of a deeper bond, a quiet intimacy that never made it to the tabloids. To Natalie, Redford was something rare, grounded, private, unshaken by the chaos of celebrity. To Redford, Natalie was luminous, yes, but also vulnerable in a way that spoke to something deeper. Friends would later say he cared for her deeply, but also recognized the turbulence in her world. Whether their connection was romantic or something more ephemeral, it left a lasting impression. When Natalie Wood died tragically in 1981, Hollywood was stunned. Redford spoke of her rarely, but when he did, his words were laced with tenderness and reverence, as if her memory was too fragile to fully expose. She wasn't a long love, but she was a spark. Fleeting, delicate, unforgettable. Barbra Streisand, the passion that burned. Bright if Natalie Wood was a spark. Then Barbra Streisand was a wildfire. By the time Redford and Streisand came together for The Way We Were in 1973, both were already stars. Neither could have predicted the cultural phenomenon their pairing would become. That film wasn't just a romance. It was a raw, aching meditation on love, ideals, and the slow unraveling of what could have been. At its center were two characters who couldn't live with or without each other. And that tension? It wasn't just acting. Streisand, bold and fiercely intelligent, was unlike anyone Redford had worked with. Their differences, his reserved cool, her electric intensity, created a chemistry that jumped off the screen. Behind the scenes, things were more complicated. Passionate, fiery, sometimes difficult. But there was admiration, too. Respect. A connection that lingered long after the camera stopped rolling. To this day, The Way We Were remains one of the most beloved romances in film history, and fans still wonder, was it just acting? Or something more? Who seemed to reflect Redford and Streisand more than audiences ever realized. Barbra Streisand, with her unwavering intensity, was the kind of woman who lived every moment in full flame. She brought urgency, vulnerability, and raw fire to every scene. Redford, on the other hand, was composed, calm, and measured, the embodiment of quiet control. Together, they were oil and water. And yet somehow, that very friction created magic on screen. Off-screen, their relationship was just as layered. Years later, Streisand would admit she was mesmerized by Redford, calling him the golden boy. Redford, always fiercely private, remained guarded. To him, Streisand's boldness was both magnetic and overwhelming. Where she craved deep emotional connection, he often pulled back, retreating into the calm that had always defined him. And still, the tension between them, the longing, the distance, became the soul of The Way We Were. Audiences felt it, because it was real. Streisand's yearning and Redford's restraint weren't just brilliant performances. They were reflections of who they truly were. The film's heartbreaking ending, where love is simply not enough, mirrored their reality. Two extraordinary people who, despite the pull, could never quite bridge the divide. For Streisand, he may have been the one who got away. For Redford, she became the love story he could only live on screen, never in life. Sonia Braga, the passion that almost consumed him, the woman who changed his world by the late 1980s. Robert Redford had done it all. Actor, director, producer, icon. That's when he met Sonia Braga, the Brazilian actress whose energy was nothing short of electric. Known globally for fearless roles in Dona Flor and Her Two Husbands and Kiss of the Spider-Woman, Braga was intensity personified. She radiated fire and sensuality, qualities that captivated Redford, a man